Okay, geometries, this is Mr. Bloom, and we are looking at solving quadratic equations by factoring. Now we're solving quadratic equations, so it's not that I'm going to take these two binomials here in problem one and find the trinomial that would result from them. I am going to use zero product rule. Zero product rule states that if I have two numbers and when I multiply them, their answer is zero, one of those numbers is zero. Either A is zero or B is zero. That's zero product rule. And for us to solve quadratic equations by factoring, we apply the zero product rule because the solve is going to tell me what the values would be for zero. So in number one, I've already factored it, or it's already been factored for us. And now I have, say, k plus 1 is equal to 0, and k minus 5 is equal to 0. Now, I solve for k. K is equal to -1, and k is equal to 5. What these two values are, they will create a 0 for the result when I plug them in for k in the equation. Now, what I want you to do is practice number 2, turn me off, and go ahead and do yours, and then turn it back on and check. Okay, so in yours, you should have had a plus 1 is equal to 0 using zero product rule. A plus 2 is equal to 0. And a is equal to -1. A is equal to -2. And those are my zeros for that equation. Now let's do another one. Now, the next one we'll have to factor before we do that. And before we even factor, we have to combine like terms. Remember when we factor, when we're doing this to get it in factored form, we have to have an ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form for us to factor, or for us even to use the quadratic formula. So I've got to take this member and add it to the other side. I'm adding it because it's a -5. So we have x squared minus 11x 19 plus 5 plus 24 is equal to 0. At this time, I'm going to factor. So I set up my two binomials I'm going to make. And now you got to think of two numbers who multiply the 24. I've got 2 and 12, 6 and 8, not 6 and 8, but 6 and 4, 8 and 3, and I got 1 and 24. Okay, those combinations are all possible, but I have to consider the fact that I have to make a -11 and I have to have a plus 24. Because it's -11 and plus 24 in these two spots, I'm going to multiply the two numbers at the end, they both have to be negative, okay? And two numbers to make 11, 6 and 4 is 10, 2 and 12 is 14. If they're both negative, they'd add together. So it's 8 and 3. And I don't care where you put 8 or where you put 3, but it's 8 and 3. So I've got my factors, and now I've got x minus 8 is equal to 0, and x minus 3 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 8, and x is equal to 3 for my work. So that's what I'm looking at. In 6, it's your turn. Turn me off, give it a try. Okay, so we subtracted 5 this time, so we have n squared plus 7n plus 10 is equal to 0. Now, I need two numbers that will multiply to be 10 and add to be 7, and they both are the same because I've got a plus here, but a plus there. Okay, so when I multiply them, they're both going to be plus, so it's either a negative and a plus and a plus. But in this case, they're both positive. And I think of 1 and 10, 5 and 2. Hey, 5 and 2. 5 and 2 had to make 7, so got that 5, got that 2. They're making 0. Use my zero product rule to find my values, my possible values for n, which are n is equal to -2 and n is equal to -5. Now, sliding on, as we go, it's part of this is about practicing and getting better at it. And if it seems like, wow, he's doing this really fast, or I'm not going this, I don't know what he's doing, you got to seek out assistance and talk to your local geometry teacher. Okay, now in number 9, I have choices. The first thing though, I've got to get the 6 to the left, this 6. So I've got 6n squared minus 18n. So I'm going to subtract 6 minus 24 is equal to 0. This one's tougher. Okay, this one's tougher because it has that leading term, leading coefficient on the n squared term. Okay, so I've got that 6, but I got the opportunity to factor that 6 out. And I'm just going to leave it in my problem, kind of. I'm going to factor out 6. I've got n squared minus 3n minus 4. Okay, and now I'm going to factor the stuff inside. So I've got n, and two numbers to make 4, but will add to be 3, but one's negative and one's positive because it's a negative finish when I multiply. So one's positive and one's negative, and to be negative here, I've got to have the bigger one negative, so 4 and 1 will make that happen. Now, when I do my zero product rule, I don't have a variable on the 6. I could have divided it out, but I wanted to make sure we had made a point of it. I'm going to divide out the 6. So I really have n plus 1 and n minus 4 is equal to 0. Now, n plus 1 is equal to 0, and n minus 4 is equal to 0. So n is equal to negative 1, and n is equal to 4. And those are my two answers for this problem. Now, just as we've been doing it, it's your turn. Go ahead, do problem 10. Please shut me off so you can practice on your own. Okay, welcome back. So we have adding 7 to both sides. And now, again, I'm going to factor out a 7. That's 7 factored out. And, excuse me, I should actually show the result of that factoring out. So I've got r squared minus 2r plus 1. Now, I can't always factor things out, but in this particular case, I was able to. So I'm pulling out the 7 and realizing that 7's not going to enter into this because it's a number. I'm going to divide it from both sides. So I've got r squared minus 2r plus 1 is equal to 0. So now I have r and an r. And I have 1. Two numbers to multiply by 1 is 1 and 1. To make them negative, I've got to do this. So this is a perfect square binomial. Okay, so I've got r is equal to, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. R minus 1 is equal to 0, and so r is 1. And I could do it on both of them, but it's the same answer. Sliding on to our next page. We have a couple left. Now, as you notice, the stuff we're doing is getting a little bit more involved, but when we're solving, we're combining like terms, bringing things over from one side to another, and we're always focused on making this work like that. Okay, always focused on making that ax squared plus bx plus c form, kind of getting it all down. So I'm going to add 5x squared to both sides, and I've got x squared, k squared. So I got k squared minus 8k minus 3 equals minus 3. I'm going to add 3. K squared minus 8k. Oh, adding 3 gives me 0. So I've got 0. I can factor out a k. So I have a k times k minus 8 equals 0. And now I'm going to use zero product rule. And k is equal to 0. Boy, that was nice and easy. And k minus 8 is equal to 0. So k is equal to 8. So my answer here, as we get this going, whoop, let's lock that in place. Okay, my answer here, as we work with this, and we'll lock that in place too, and this as well. I'm just going to group this and pull this out of the way because we do have our answer. And we're just going to pull that up because I got a little crazy with my work. These are my two answers for that problem. Now, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and do problem 15. Nope, not 15. I lied. I hate it when I lie. Let's go ahead and do problem 14. So we're looking at problem 14. Okay. Turn me off. Make sure you do it, then turn it back on. Okay, welcome back. B squared plus 2b minus 35 is equal to 0. Now remember, I've just got a b on both sides here. I got 35. Numbers make 35 as 5 and 7. Well, that's going to be great because their difference when 7's positive is positive 2 and 5's negative. So b plus 7 is equal to 0, b minus 5 is equal to 0, and b is equal to negative 7, and b is equal to 5 for my answers. Let's look at 15. Okay, problem 15. I got a 3r squared minus 16r. Now I'm going to subtract 5 minus 12. Now, I can't factor the 3 out the way I've been doing it, but 3 is a prime number. I can't break it down, so I know 3r is going to be one sides, r equals 0. Now, because this is kind of influenced by that 3, I'm going to think about the things that make 12 and see if I can make combinations. 12 is 1 and 12. Okay, so 12 and 3 is 15. Okay, if I use 12 and 1, that doesn't work. 2 and 6, now 2 and 6 is 18 and 2. 6 times 3 is 18. 2 by itself. See what I'm doing here? I'm just kind of walking through my mind when I do it. And I want to go 6 times 3 and 2 times r. And I want the 6 because that's negative to be negative. And since that's negative, I know this is plus. And now I go negative 18 plus 2 is going to make my negative 16. Totally got it made. So now I can set up my 3r plus 2 is equal to 0, and r minus 6 is equal to 0. So r is 6, and 3r is equal to negative 2, and r is equal to negative 2/3. Okay, so I've got my two answers. One happens to be a fraction, the other happens to be just a integer like we've been working on. Okay, I'm going to group these together so they're out of my way. And we got that made. Now it's your turn. Y'all try 16 and give it a try. Okay, welcome back. Let's see what we've got. 6b squared. Now this is a negative 3. Minus 13b. Adding 3 plus 6 is equal to 0. Now, I have choices here. And me explaining my choices sometimes helps some students. Other times, it's a little confusing. If I decided to keep the 6 by itself, okay, I've got factors of 6, which are 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Okay, those are the things I've got to use. And I could keep 6 by itself, okay, and I've got to make 13. So I've got 6b, if I do this, so I can put 2 here, 3 here, okay, and that's going to be 2, 3, that's 18. 18 and 2, I can't make 13. So I can't put the 2 and 3 like that. So I got to get rid of the 2 and the 3. The 2's gone, the 3's gone. What about the 6 and the 1? 6 and 1. 6 and 6, that's 12, but not 13. And the other one's 36 and 1, so that's not going to work. So what I'm saying here is I can't use the 6 by itself, but I can use this situation. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the assumption that 6 is split, okay, as 3 times 2. And now 6 is still 2 and 3, so now I've got these numbers here. I've got 1 and 6, and if I go 6 here and 1 here, that's 18 and 2. That will not make my 13. If I go 12 and 3, that won't make 13 either. So I'm going to go with 2 and 3. So that's 4 and that's 9. Hey, that's totally going to work. 3 times 3 is 9. 2 and 2 is 4. They both have to be negative, and I've got it made. Okay, now a lot of times people see an instructor do this really fast, but I want to make sure you see those are the jumbles I do in my head when I get these things done. Okay, and since you had an opportunity to practice it, maybe you did it really well. And if you didn't, hopefully this helped you with what our next steps are. 3b minus 2 is equal to 0. 2b minus 3 is equal to 0. So now 3b is equal to 2 and b is equal to 2/3. 2b is equal to 3 and b is equal to 3/2. So those are my answers. Okay. And we are just going to make sure that if you've got questions, you seek out enlightenment from your local geometry teacher. Okay. Last two. You guys go ahead and get after 19. Remember, turn me off. Now, here we go. I don't have the third term here, so I can factor out an x. So x is equal to 0, and 7x plus 2 is equal to 0. 7x is equal to -2, and x is equal to -2/7. So these are my two answers. And we're done with the problem. Okay, now let's look at this last one. Okay, 21. We've got 8x squared plus 21 equal -59. So I've got to add 59 to both sides. 8x squared plus 59x plus 21 is equal to 0. Now remember, 21 is 1 times 21 or 3 times 7. Those are my choices. Okay, and I've got to get 8 really big, but 8 times 7 is 56. Well, 56, 59, that's 3 away. So 3 and 7 I'm going to use. I'm going to show you how I'm using it. So I've got 7 times 8 is going to give me 56. 3 times x gives me 3x. 56 plus 3 is 59. And they both have to be plus. So now 8x plus 3 is equal to 0. So 8x is equal to -3, and x is equal to -3/8. X plus 7 is equal to 0, and x is equal to -7. And those are my two answers. Okay, you guys try 22 and we'll see where things go. Go ahead. Okay, welcome back. I got 15a squared. I'm adding 7, so plus 4a. I'm subtracting 3 minus 3. It's equal to, remember, I added 7 and I subtracted the 3. Now, I need a number on the front side. I'm going to go 5a. I'm going to split this up, and 3a. And I've got to make 4, and I'm thinking that if I get 9 and 5, that makes 4. And people are like, wow, 9 and 5. 1 and 3 is my only choices, so I go 1 and 3 or 3 and 1. And now this is 9 when I multiply them together, and I want it to be positive, and I want that to be negative, so it's -5a, and 9 is 4a. And now I can finish my solve. Yeah, it does not look good. And now, do not shortcut these solves. I've had a lot of people, they shortcut, oh, I know what these are, and then they make a sign error or they divide incorrectly. Be careful. And again, this is solving using factoring, and the next step after we factor is using the zero product rule. If you have questions about stuff, please locate your geometry teacher and ask him questions. I hope this is all going well. I'm Mr. Bloom, and you're not. Have a great day.